This video explains Bob and Jim's spreadsheet for projecting enrollments in Minnesota public school districts. There's one kind of analysis for kindergarten and another for grades 1 to 12. The spreadsheet gives the user 4 options for kindergarten and 5 options for grades 1 to 12 for a total of 20 combinations. The options for kindergarten are based on both past enrollments and past births. The options for grades 1 to 12 are driven by the concept of the cohort survival ratio, or CSR. A CSR is simply the ratio of enrollment in a given grade and year to enrollment in the prior grade in the prior year. We'll go more into the details of these options in a minute, but first let's look at the worksheet that we're already in. Let's focus on the yellow, blue, and brown cells right here. Right now, each of them has a 1. The 1 in the yellow cell means that we're looking at Aiken, which in Minnesota is district number 1. The 1 in the blue cell means that we're using kindergarten option number 1, which holds kindergarten constant at the last known value. And the 1 in the brown cell means that we're using cohort survival option number 1, which holds the cohort survival ratios for all grades constant at the last known value. Now, over here, if you look carefully at the light brown lines, you'll see that there are 20 lines, which represent all 20 combinations of options that apply to Aiken. One of the lines is highlighted in red. That line currently shows what we get for Aiken's projections, if we hold both kindergarten and the cohort survival ratios constant at the last known values. Now let's explore what happens if we change the 3 1s. First, let's change the district from Aiken to St. Paul. To get St. Paul, we go to the yellow cell and we enter a 625. And now the red line in the graph shows the projections for St. Paul if we hold kindergarten constant and hold all the cohort survival ratios constant. Now, let's check whether the kindergarten option really makes a difference for St. Paul. I know we haven't defined all these options yet, but now let's just quickly change the value in the blue cell from a 1 to a 2 to a 3 to a 4 and see what happens to the red line. There's option number 1 for kindergarten. Oh, when we go to option number 2, the projections go way down. Option number 3, hardly changed at all. And option number 4, well, the projections went up, but not all that much. Anyway, here's the lesson here. The kindergarten option does make a difference for St. Paul, so we'd better choose it carefully. Now let's see if the cohort survival option is worth worrying about. We can change the value in the brown cell from a 1 to a 2 to a 3 to a 4 to a 5. Let's go through that process. Go to the brown cell. Here's what we have with option number 1. And then option 2. Projections went up. Option 3. Oh, projections didn't change much that time. Option number 4. Oh, the projections went down. And option number 5. Projections went down again. Conclusion. The cohort survival option also makes a difference for St. Paul, so we better choose it carefully. Now that we've settled that, let's look at the options in more detail to see what we've really been messing with. Here we see the 4 kindergarten options graphed for St. Paul. Option number 1, the simplest one, just hold kindergarten constant at the last known value. Option number 2 simply, in effect, draws a straight line between the kindergarten enrollment in 2019 and the last known value in 2026. The green dots show what enrollment would have been every year if there had been consistent change, which there really hasn't been. Option 3 shows what enrollment would be in the future based on what we know about live births in the past. And option 4 is simply based on the average of the first 3 options. So let's take a closer look at what we see. Now the black lines show known kindergarten enrollment, and the red lines show projections under each of the 4 options. When we look at option 1, we see that there was actually a pretty sharp drop right after the year 2019, but it's kind of leveled off recently. Option 2 projects a fairly sharp drop, but it doesn't reflect the fact that the enrollment is pretty much leveled off in the last few years. Option 3 shows that there's been a consistent drop in live births, but that doesn't really match the not so consistent drop in enrollment projections. And again, option 4 is the average of the first 3 options. It shows a decline, but less of a decline than options 2 or 3. Now, where do we go from here? It's tempting to choose option number 1 because enrollment has leveled off pretty much in the last few years. And it's a simple option, easy to explain, but it doesn't seem consistent with the drop in live births, which is shown by the dotted line in option 3. So tentatively, let's go with option 4. To do that, we are going to go back to our original worksheet. We're already at option 4 for kindergarten, so let's leave it at that, but let's put the assumption for cohort survival back to 1. So, this is what we have at this point, but we still have to consider which option we'll use for grades 1 through 12. Let's see what we have for cohort survival for grade 1 in St. Paul. As we said before, the cohort survival ratio is the ratio of the enrollment in a given grade in a given year to the enrollment in the prior grade in the prior year. For grade 1 in the year 2026, for St. Paul, it would be the ratio of the grade 1 enrollment in 2026, which is 2,505, divided by the kindergarten enrollment in 2025, which is 2,516. The result shown here is 0.9956. They lost 11 kids, net loss of 11 kids. But what we've done here now is calculate this cohort survival ratio for each of the 5 years between 2026 and 2022. Now we've said we've got 5 options for cohort survival, and they are simply based first on option number 1, holding the ratio constant at the last known value for 2026, which would give us a 0.9956. The second is to take the weighted average for 2026 and 2025, where the weights are going to be 2 for 2026 and 1 for 2025. That would give us a result of 1.0033. Not that much of a change. And then we've gone on to do option number 3, which is the 3-year weighted average, option 4, the 4-year weighted average, and option 5, the 5-year weighted average. Okay, we'll return again to the original worksheet. And what we see now with the red line is the projection for St. Paul if we combine kindergarten option number 4, which we've already decided on, with cohort survival option number 1, the most recent value. Now let's change that 1 to a 2 for the 2-year weighted average cohort survival ratio, and the result went up at least a little bit. Let's change it to 3. Dropped a tiny bit. Change it to 4. Ooh, drop some more. And change it to 5. Drop quite a bit more. That's because the cohort survival ratios were quite a bit lower if we go back 4 or 5 years. It seems to me that the most realistic result is what we get if we put the cohort survival assumption back to a 2-year weighted average. So here's what we get. I call this the most plausible of the 20 options that we had here. So that's the concept of our spreadsheet. But please remember that this isn't the last word for St. Paul. Both our kindergarten option and the cohort survival option are still open to some debate. Remember that enrollment projection is not an exact science. It's more like predicting the weather. And a final note. The file includes a worksheet, which we haven't shown, that converts projected enrollments to projected average daily membership. This is essential since average daily membership is the basis for general education revenue. Thanks for watching.